Howdy YouTube, back at you. It's August 2nd, 2022, and I guess it's pretty much the next day pretty much the next day after the last video. Get you caught up. I did a little bit of work out here, about an hour and a half or so. When I last left off, I had washed the car, and 2013 GTI. I had washed the car, and then I had done the clay bar on it. And today I had done the rubbing compound in the places that needed it. And then I used my power polisher with the pad and used the polishing compound. And so I want to do a short little video. And also I want to answer one of the questions somebody asked me about the process I'm using on the paint restoration. So, as far as the rubbing compound, got the majority of the scratches out. The major scratches on the door handles where everybody's wedding ring and kids, things hit the door handles down in there. I got the majority of those out. Got a couple of real good scratches that was on the door out. And then the only one I wasn't really able to get out, actually there's two. You can almost see it in the light right there. There's a pretty good scratch. I couldn't get that out. That's almost down past the base, and it's just a real thin. And then I couldn't get some of these out on the top, and I couldn't get this one out. It was all the way down to the pretty much the plastic, or those two, I guess there are. And then there's one tiny one over there, but everything else came out. And then I jumped into with the polishing pad, and then just got through buffing that polishing compound off. And like I said, I'm doing it, this is a salvage vehicle, and so it was a repairable car, engine blue. I got it, I got a budget on it. I'm not gonna go full on 100%, $1,000 detail job on this, but I'm going to use the stuff I can get, like many people can get at AutoZone, Pet Boys, O'Reilly's, Advance, whatever your local, auto parts dealer is. You can get this stuff. It's cheap, and it turns out pretty darn good. So let me show you this is how the paint looks now after using the polishing compound on the entire car. But the rubbing compound where I needed to use it, where the scratches are, and that's just my fingerprints up here. Disregard that, but you can see how it brought that clear coat just back to almost a glass. Absolutely beautiful. And then there's some scratches up in here I wasn't able to get out. You can just see a pretty good groove there. And this is just, it's got 150,000 some odd miles on this car, and they're all highway miles. So and then there's a pretty good rock chip right there. Where I did not do was the front clip, so pretty much on both sides from the driver and passenger door forward. Reason for that is I've got some paint, three-stage paint. So I've got the primer, the base coat, and the clear coat on order. It's supposed to be here Thursday this week. And I want to see if I can't feather out some of these rock chips up here in the front on this fender, on the bumper cover, the crush, call it the front bumper, and then on that passenger side as well. So anyway, the rest of the car, I tell you what, it sure polished up nice, and just wait until you see the glass that it will look like after I do the remainder of the process I'm using. This is my process. I'm not going to say that I invented it. This is just something that I use. And I'll show you just a minute over here on the table. But you can see the hood, and I think I showed you that in the last video. So I've got that all the way down to the pretty much the original primer. And I'm going to go ahead and probably sometime next week I'm going to sand that down, get it all the way down to bare metal, and then when that primer comes, I'll be able to prime it up and then sand it down, put the base coat on it, tack it, and then put the clear on it. And then I'm going to jump in the process just like I used on the remainder of the car, or the majority of the car, I'm going to use on the hood, so it all matches the paint and everything like that. So let's jump over here on the table so I can answer something someone asked me. They asked me what clay bar I used. Well, I used my personal clay bar. What I use is I go to Ace Hardware and I get this stuff, this just plumber's putty. This is about $1.99 for this big old little thing. It's probably 14 ounces, I think it says. Anyway, $2. I don't know the grit on that, so you know, whenever you go to a detail shop or detail store, they're going to sell you different grits of clay bar. But since this paint on this car, again, I'm trying to do it not cheap, but within reason of the budget. So I'm going to use the process that I used on motorcycles, on you know, previous cars. It worked out really good for me. So I use that plumber's putty, and then I use a 50-50 combination of water and speed wax by Lucas. This is 50% water, 50% this Lucas speed wax. And that's what I use for the lubricant when I'm using the clay bar. So don't use your clay bar until you wash your vehicle. You got to get all that initial stuff off. The clay bar, or the plumber's putty in this case, is used to get off tree sap, asphalt, you know, the chemical kind of stains in the paint or in the clear coat. That helps get that off. And that's, I don't know what the grit is on that, but with the condition of this paint, it was just, we're in the process of just getting that kind of sap and that water spotting off, that hard water stains and stuff. So the plumber's putty is the perfect grit for that, in my opinion, or the perfect process to use in this process. So use that, and then the Lucas as the lubricant. After I did that, I used a clean microfiber cloth, buffed and removed any kind of haze or anything like that I could get off. Next, I jumped into using the rubbing compound where I needed it on the car, and where it did need it on the car, as an example, where these two scratches down here, I did that kind of entire kind of quarter panel, if you will. I didn't want to focus just on the scratch and just rub it in, because that's going to stand out whenever you bring this different layers of wax and the polishing out. So I did that whole little corner over there. I also did the lenses on the brake lights and reverse lights. So look at how shiny those are now. And then up there, I also did it as well. So anyway, so rubbing compound I used by hand. I just used a little, those wax foam applicators with the rubbing compound, did it by hand, and then take a clean microfiber cloth, buff it off, get all that dust blown off. It's really good to use a fan in a garage and start back here in the back and on the top, so it blows everything away. That way you don't have the residual dust when you're trying to use your polisher or, put additional stuff on. It's going to blow that stuff that you buffed off onto the floor or, away from the vehicle and the part of the car you're working on. So after I did the microfiber and buffed off the rubbing compound, I jumped into my power polisher, and I used this polishing compound by Turtle Wax. $9, 22 prices. So they're in at 20 bucks for a rubbing or a compounding and a polishing. And I used just the paint correcting pad, and I think I showed you this in the previous video, but just this one here. Obviously you want to put some of that compound in there, and then prime it, if you will. So put some in there, rub it down in there so it's kind of moist, if you will, and then just 3 little dots on there, and then just each one of your doors, each one of your corner panels at a time, and then come back with your clean microfiber cloth, buff off the polishing compound. Okay, at that point it should look just like this. Okay, and that's where you're going to get all those surface imperfections, scratches, and the majority of the scratches hopefully you could get out. Sorry, again, that's just my fingerprints. I'm making them worse. Anyway, yeah, so it should look just like that kind of high gloss, if you will. Next thing is to bring depth of that gloss out. And the process I use is, like I said, I use the Gold Class McGuire's Carnauba wax. I'll put that on with the applicator, clean microfiber cloth. I'll buff it off. I do pretty much, I start on the top. I do the entire top. or roof, if you will, then buff that off. Then I come down the sides. I come back here in the back in front of my fan, do this side, and then I'll move the fan over, I'll do the rear, and then finish up over here on the passenger side. After I've done the wax, then I use some ceramic coating, and then come back with the microfiber cloth and buff that out. Now, during this process, I will, having used this process, once you have put the wax on, you've buffed it off, and then you spray on your ceramic coating, and I'm using this Mother's CMX. Once you spray that ceramic coating on there, you want to let it sit for about 15 minutes or so, okay? I'm in a garage, it's about 85 degrees, so 15 minutes. It could be less if it's hotter in your garage, it could be more if it's cooler. So just for that, but let it sit on there. It's gonna turn kind of a gray color, after, almost like the color of this bottle. After it does, it's gonna look just like wax that's ready to be buffed off. Okay, let's leave it at that. After that's done, another clean microfiber cloth, and you're gonna buff it, okay? Someone asked me why I use this process in this particular order. Well, there's a reason for that. It's the level of the grit in the product that I'm using. So I'm using, you know, just some Plumber's Putty, real fine grit. It's just to get off the surface. However, rubbing compound has some pretty good grit to it. Less grit in your polishing, real fine grit. Wax actually has grit in it, but not a lot. I mean, we're talking toothpaste kind of stuff, even less. And then this is just liquid, so there's absolutely no grit in that whatsoever. So that's why I use it in this order. Now, could you use the ceramic before you put on the spray? Sure, you could do that. Or before you put on the wax, sure, you could do it that way. However, in my process, this has proven to be what's beneficial to my process, and you know what turns out really, really good. Am I removing the wax by applying the ceramic after, or am I putting the ceramic on top of the wax? It's just going to chip off or come away. I don't know. I'm just telling you, it's worked for me so long that, and I can get this stuff cheap at any auto parts store. So I'm going to use this in this process. Okay. Again, going back to when you put on the ceramic coating after your wax, after you've buffed off your wax, it's going to turn gray. And when you go to buff, it's gonna be really hard to kind of get it off. It's gonna look like this, and I left this little spot here so you can see. You see how that's kind of hazy, okay? I'm gonna get this clean microfiber cloth right here. I'm gonna buff that like this, okay? See how that brought that right out? And that's glass, but I left that little area there so we can do it, all right? And then I'll do up here just real quick, all right? Okay, so that's the process I use, and that's why, all righty? And don't freak out when you put that ceramic coating on there. It's gonna turn gray, it's gonna get all kind of gooey feeling or whatever. It's like it's not coming off. Stay with it. Just keep on buffing it. What you've done is you've probably tried to buff it off before it is dried and adhered to your paint. The more or the longer you leave it on there, the harder it is going to be to buff it off, but it will come off. Just hang with it and go through your microfiber towels. Don't worry about that. Go ahead and use 2, 3, 4, 5 of them if you need to. Make sure you have a good pack before you start this process, because you're going to need them. Okay, you can always throw them in the washing machine later on. So that's where we're at right now. I will come back when the process is completely finished as far as what I use here, but I did want to lay out the products that I'm using in this particular project. One thing, in between your washes, after you use this and it's all done, said and done, you can use this Lucas Speed Wax. Now this, again, this 50-50 solution that I've used for my lubricant for my plumber's putty, but get a fresh bottle of this and you can just mist it over your car, let it dry a little bit, and then buff it off, and that will bring that sheen back to your paint and your finish. And the other thing I would recommend, now this is something you probably cannot find add AutoZone or something like that, but you can get it on Amazon. It's called Chemical Guys VRP, vinyl rubber plastic. This big old 16 ounce, call it bottle, was probably, I believe it was $9. It was 2 years ago, so it's probably gone up in price with the recession and everything like that. But where I use that is on the hard parts on the vinyl exterior, the weather stripping here, but where it really, really makes a difference is when you use it on the arms of your wipers, and also on your, we'll call it the valance of your, you know, what I'm talking about is this, where these things always get sun bleached, that plastic. I swear by that stuff now because I used it on my rear bumper on my truck. I have a Chevy truck, and on the rear bumper where that top little step is, it always sun bleaches. So every time I wash the truck, I go and I get some of this and put it in a sponge and just kind of coat it on there, let it dry off, take a towel. You don't even have to use a microfiber, just use a terry cloth, you know, just a paint rag, and wipe that stuff off, and it will make it look exactly brand new, all right? The other place it'll really make a difference is up here on stuff like that, like your rubber little grommet and your roof antennas, all right? And then also anywhere where you have like this plastic kind of textured plastic on your mirrors and siding and stuff like that. A lot of cars have that now, especially, you know, the Pontiac Aztecs. Remember those? It was just nothing but this plastic stuff. Anyway, and the other thing is where you get your polish rubbing and wax on your rubber like this, where it's just, you know, it turns white. What you want to do is you want to open your door and make sure you have a cloth ready, but you want to take just a regular old toothbrush and spray it with Windex, and just use that toothbrush, and that'll take that stuff right off. Okay, then come back with your that vinyl protectant and coat that, and then take your cloth and kind of wipe it off. It's going to get on your windows and stuff like that, but that's okay. Just wipe it off and it'll do a miracle. And the other thing is make sure you do it inside of your door jams. Wipe all that stuff out, you know, especially here, inside of the doors, and make sure you do the door jam. Nothing's tackier than to get into a car and open it up and see that, you know, where they didn't do the inside of the door jam, especially when you open up the trunk. This is always a funny place, is, you know, along here, you know, these places like that. So make sure you do that, and then also around up in here, if you're really getting into the, you know, if you really want to get into it like me, perfectionist, over perfectionist. Anyway, so there's where we set. Engine again runs great. Got it covered up just so I don't get a bunch of wax and, you know, painting correction products onto the engine. Brand new rebuild engine. So, and then I'll probably pull off these headlights, and I'm going to see if I can't buff those up with some polishing compound, rubbing compound, toothpaste, whatever. See if it'll bring back some good sheen. And then the last thing I'll do as far as the exterior is the wheels. So there's where we sit, and again, I still got all the parts of the old engine and stuff like that over here. That'll be, you know, coming soon. I'll let you know whenever I throw that on OfferUp or Craigslist or something like that, so everybody out there that's doing this type of vehicle can jump into it. And then when I was doing the inside of here with my, inside of the fuel door, there's supposed to be something in here, and so it's supposed to click. Well, now it does. So there we go. Make sure you double check that. You push it in. There's no button inside the car. You push it in and it opens up. So yeah, live and learn. All right, there we go, YouTube. And so to answer the person's question that sent me the email, yeah, I use Plumber's Putty. I use 50/50 water and Lucas Speed Wax as my lubricant, and did it that way. Now, can you do that with a Mother's Clay Bar kit or something like that? No, I use that Mother's lubricant that comes with it. Probably the best thing to do, manufacturer, but This is the process I use. And again, nothing in this step or in any of these stages, none of these chemicals conflict with the other. So you're not going to put on, you know, polishing compound on top of rubbing compound and ruin your paint, unless you go full bore on your polisher, or, you know, scratch your paint, you know, with a rock, you drop your towel on the ground or whatever. Same thing with your wax. It's not going to interfere with your rubbing compound or polishing. It's just going up in fineness of the grit. And then this is just an extra level of protectant to the paint. You know, everybody swears by that ceramic stuff, and this is a reasonable price. I don't know what it is. It's probably about 12 bucks or something. And then in between, I swear by this Lucas stuff, speed wax. I mean, those hot rodders use that all over the world. And I've seen it at car shows lined up in their product section. Here's what I use. Well, here's what I'm using. So anyway, here we are, junkyard car. She's coming along so beautiful. Really did luck out on this. I've been looking at that website where I got these, or where I got this, and also at the Mini Cooper, and yeah, I'm seeing things that where the entire front clip is done, the airbags are blown. Those kind of projects are way outside of my expertise, or anything probably some of you can do in your home, in your garage, in your spare time. This is a maybe 1 or 2 hour per day, or maybe 2 hours every 3 days, something like that project. I don't have a lot of time to spend. I'm limited on health, but some of you out there have full-time jobs and stuff like that, and same thing. You're not going to be able to come home and just jump into a full-on project, and you don't want to get into something that's got blown airbags. That's just money, money, money. Same thing with computer issues. Transmission control modules, stuff like that. If you plug your scanner into that car and it just throws every code and it's transmission related, get out of there. Don't even try it. A simple little clutch project or something like that is really not that time consuming, and pretty reasonably easy for somebody with some reasonable mechanical knowledge, as long as you have, your transmission jack, stuff like that. I don't want to get into too long of this video, but where I'm going with this is junkyard cars can come back. Just watch your budget, see what the condition is before, and then see what you think you can make it. And boy, this is turning out just what I thought it was going to happen. The only thing I haven't done to date is I didn't build out that motor. I didn't go full bore, and the reason for that, again, I'm in California. I want to get this thing registered. I want to make sure it smogs. I want to make sure it's insurable and it's roadworthy before I go in there and do any kind of, extra performance stuff, blow off valve, diverter valve, stuff like that. So tune, intercoolers, no, exhaust, whatever. Speaking of exhaust, I still got to get down there and I'll use some metal polish on that. And I'll show you the process that I use on that, as well as the product that I usually use as far as metal polish. I don't have it with me, so I'll get back to you on the next video. And thanks so much for watching. I think the next thing I'll show you is after I get that sanded down to bare metal, and then once I'm ready to prep it for the primer and stuff like that, we'll jump into the hood. Alrighty? Okay, take care. Bye.